Hey, I'm Matt Reynolds, owner of Starting Strength Online Coaching and co-host of Barbell Logic, and I'm here with my dad, Scott Hambrick, and my daughter, Brooke Haubenstricker. This is a very German name. Hobo stripper. And we're gonna talk about the deficit deadlift today, one of our favorite supplemental exercises. So we love the deficit deadlift because it adds a little bit of range of motion to a regular deadlift. And if we go back and we talk about what makes the lifts most efficient for getting strong, we use three primary criteria. We pick lifts that use the most muscle mass, we use lifts that use the most weight, and we move that weight for the greatest effective range of motion. What a deficit deadlift does is it increases the range of motion a little bit, and it only decreases the weight a little bit. And what that ends up doing is it helps you get the bar off the floor. So if you struggle with a deadlift, a normal deadlift off the floor, a deficit deadlift is a great supplemental exercise to help you with the bar off the floor. So there are two ways to increase range of motion on a supplemental deadlift exercise. One is with a deficit deadlift, just like this, where we're standing on pads or mats or a box. And what that's gonna do is artificially elongate the legs. So your legs will theoretically be a little longer because you're standing on the mats, even though the weights are still on the floor. Another way to increase range of motion is with a snatch grip deadlift. And that's where I take a really wide grip on a deadlift bar. And what that's gonna do is artificially shorten the arm. So if you think about the lockout of regular deadlift is gonna be down here sort of kind of mid-thigh. With the snatch grip deadlift, it's actually gonna be way up on my bladder, kind of below my belly. So I'm gonna have to pull the range of motion significantly longer there as well. The reason I like a deficit deadlift over a snatch grip deadlift is because the angles are much more similar in a deficit deadlift to a regular deadlift. So in a deficit deadlift, when I set up, as long as I use a relatively low deficit, a 1 to 2 inch deficit, no more than 2 inches, I can keep my hips slightly lower than my shoulders. At the point that I move that deficit from 2 inches to 3 or 4, it's gonna lift my rear end, and at some point my hips are gonna be higher than my shoulders, and now I'm at such a level of inefficiency, it won't carry over. The amount of weight I can pull on a deficit deadlift on a 4-inch deficit is gonna be so much lower than what I could deadlift on a regular deadlift that it's not gonna carry over very well. So a 1 to 2 inch deficit is the best sort of bang for our buck for still being able to deadlift a lot of weight, increase the range of motion, carry over well to pull off the floor, and then it's gonna make your deadlift go up. So the setup for a deficit deadlift is exactly like a regular deadlift, just 5 simple steps. Step 1, walk forward until your shins are 1 inch from the bar. Step 2, with straight legs, reach down and grab the bar just outside your legs. Step 3, shins forward to the bar and knees out. Step 4, squeeze the chest up, set your back tight. Step 5, drag up your legs, stand up tall, big chest, drag it back down your legs. Perfect. Step 1, stance. Step 2, grip. Step 3, shins, knees out. Step 4, chest, nice and tight, and drag. Perfect. So, next question. How do we program deficit deadlift? And who shouldn't use it? Well, if you're a novice, you should not be doing deficit deadlifts. If you're in a linear progression, you should just be doing the squat, the deadlift, the bench press, the press, and as time goes on, you might add one other movement. It might be a power clean, it might be a chin up, it might be a barbell row. And we're not gonna do anything else during novice linear progression except for those exercises. Nothing, no curls, no dips, no lying tricep extensions, no deficit deadlifts, nothing. But when I get out of novice linear progression and I move into intermediate strength training, we will often move to a 4-day split. So 2 upper days and 2 lower body days. And on those lower body days, I'm gonna split those up between a primary squat day and a primary deadlift day. So on the squat day, I'm gonna squat first, and then I'm gonna do a supplemental deadlift version. One of those options would be a deficit deadlift. And then on the other lower body day, I'm gonna do a regular deadlift followed up by a supplemental squat, which we'll talk about in other videos. So that's how I program on a weekly split. How do I do sets and reps? Well, with deficit deadlift, because the range of motion is longer, I tend to actually cut down the reps a little bit. So rather than doing things like sets of 5, I really like sets of 3 on a deficit deadlift. And I'll even work down to doubles and sometimes singles as I approach a meet. As I get to a more advanced lifter, and they get ready to compete in a meet. The last few weeks of their training, I'll actually pull one of these mats and I'll have them deadlift off just that one because it's so close to a regular deadlift. It doesn't throw off their motor pattern, but it makes it just a little bit harder. And then when they go to the meet, we pull that last mat and they go, man, it's so much easier to get set up. It's much more difficult to get tight on a deficit deadlift than a regular deadlift. And so if you've gotten used to getting tight on a deficit deadlift, pull the deficit and then go to a regular deadlift. It carries over really well. You've been watching our deficit deadlift tutorial. To learn more about how to deadlift, click here. I'm gonna let you do it. Or like and comment here and subscribe right here.